Hello, and thank you for joining me for supporting your learner at home. Today we're going to learn some strategies to engage your learners in their learning process. Before we get started, please make sure that you have downloaded and printed or made the document editable. This is our note catcher. You will need this so that you can engage in this training. Today we're going to go over the focus circle. We'll have some reflection times. We're going to go over the 7 different learning styles and have a discussion, which, since this is recorded, it's going to be with yourself and the note catcher. Please pause the video at any time so that you can add to your notes and add to your note catcher. First, let's focus our attention on our learners that are at home with us. Using your note catcher, please reflect on when your learner focuses best. What time of day, what subject? When do they struggle to focus? And is there something in the room that distracts them? Think about what is happening in the room when your learner is struggling. Also think about what's happening in the room when your learner is focused. What types of sounds, what time of day, what objects are around them. Please pause the video so that you have time to reflect. On page 2 of your note catcher is this focus circle. This focus circle is a strategy that helps everybody, learners, filter out the noise that comes with learning. It's so hard when you are reading or listening to find exactly what's important and to get rid of the words that are not important. What you are going to do on your focus circle is put your learner's name in that middle circle. Right there I have supporting my learner in the middle circle, which you're welcome to write that as well. You're going to write the topic of focus. So if your learner is using this, or if you're using this, you are putting what you are supposed to be focusing on in the middle. In this instance, it's supporting our learner, which could be your learner's name. If you're using this as note catchers for, let's say, math, then you would put the topic that you're learning about in math in that center circle. In the next circle, you are going to write words or phrases that you want to remember, things that will support your learner. Words or phrases that you recognize in your learner, or words or phrases that you think, wow, that's really going to be important for my learner. On the outside of the circle, you're going to write words or phrases that will not help your learner. This is where we're filtering it out. The things that I go over that you're like, oh, that would not be helpful at all. That's going to go on the outside. Let's go over the 7 different learning styles. Remember to write the words or the phrases that sound like your learner. First and foremost is auditory. It's not really first, I didn't really put these in order. Auditory learners need to hear the learning. They can't just sit and read it, they need to hear it. Our visual learners need to see a demonstration or a visual representation of the learning. Sitting and reading the words aren't necessarily what they need. Our kinesthetic learners need to physically manipulate something with their hands to truly learn it and to truly be engaged. Our reading, writing, or solitary learners can read it and take notes and learn on their own. Our verbal learners need to talk it out. They need to use their words to either talk about it or write about it with somebody else so that they are processing their own learning. Our social learners need to see what their peers are doing or to see what others are doing. They need to be in a group or see what is happening around them. And our logical learners need to be able to see patterns in everything. They need to see how things connect and see the bigger picture. If any of these sound like your learner, write them in the center, in the middle circle. If you see something here that you think, wow, this is not my learner at all, put that on the outside of the circle. I want you to take a moment to identify what type of learner you have in your home. Do they thrive by hearing it, seeing it, manipulating it with their hands, building things, reading it, talking about it, seeing what other people do with their learning, or think about their learning in patterns. Take a minute in your note catcher or in your focus circle to identify what type of learner you have at home. Now I want you to think about what type of instruction does K-12 mainly offer? What is the main type of instruction that your learners experience in K-12? I'll give you a hint. I've circled it. It's reading, writing, and solitary. So that is the main type of instruction that your learners are receiving, but that may not align with the type of learning style they have. So let's go through each of the different learning styles so we can see how to align the type of instruction they are experiencing with what their brain prefers. If your learner is an auditory learner and they are in K-12, some ways that you can better support them is to find some videos that will support the lessons coming up. You're going to need to look in advance at what they are coming up on in their next unit before they get there so that you can find resources for them so that when they go through the lesson, they can then watch a video to help support their learning to bring it all together. Or they can watch the video first to help set the tone and then go through the K-12 lesson. You, as the learning coach, can summarize the lesson so that they can hear the words that they are going to be reading or that they have read. You and your learner can talk through the lesson together. I recommend keeping noise distractions at a minimum. Those are those random noises. One way to do this, it sounds interesting, I'm like, keep noise distractions at a minimum, turn on noise. Turn on music. This is going to be a constant sound that their brain will just kind of fall into the motion of, and it will help filter out all of the other distracting noises. I would recommend classical type music, words or music that doesn't have a lot of words to them, just to help their brain be able to focus on their reading, while their ears, their auditory learners, their ears are constantly listening to bring in information. So if you're giving it information in the form of classical music, it's going to get what it wants. The brain is getting what it wants with its auditory, and it's allowing the prefrontal cortex actually to be able to read and write and take in the information from K-12. Our visual learners, these kids think in emojis and GIFs. So think about when you are interacting with your learner through phones. Are they sending you a lot of emojis and GIFs? If that is your learner, have them draw or find a picture of their learning. This goes for all ages. After they have done their learning, or while they are doing their learning, have them draw out a visual representation of what they've just learned. And if you don't want to take the time to draw, have them find a picture. If that takes too much time, you can find a few pictures and say, tell me which one of these pictures best represents what you just learned about. Our visual learners need to see the learning to best engage and understand in it. Another option is to have the learning coach draw out the process. This is what I'm thinking about, especially in math. The learners are going through K-12 and they're having to read about how to do a process in math. Our visual learners need to see it happening live. So have them go through the lesson so that they can read it and have the background knowledge, that basic knowledge of how to do it. And then the learning coach needs to simply go through the process live in front of them. Keep visual distractions at a minimum. Again, just like with our auditory learners, their ears are trying to take in as much information as possible. Our visual learners, their eyes are working real hard to get as much information as they can. If you have a ton of information, a ton of visual distractions around them, their eyes are naturally going to be moving towards those. So keep those visual distractions at a minimum. Color code everything. Color code their agenda, color code their work that is supposed to be done, because again, their eyes are constantly searching for that information. Giving them a color-coded system is going to help them. This includes when they are taking notes. You can color code their subjects, have a different binder or a different notebook for every subject that is in a specific color. They could even write in the same color pen for each. Like if math is red, the math notebook is red, they get to write in a red pen or whatever color they choose. For me, when I think of science, I think of green. So in my office, anything that is science is actually green. And allow them to doodle or draw on their notes or while they are reading. This gives that visual part of their brain what it needs so that the rest of the brain can focus on the topic. Our kinesthetic learners, so these are our movers and our shakers, allow them to create something with their learning. My middle son is more of a kinesthetic learner. So he gets to create, he gets 5 minutes at the end of lessons to create something with Legos that represents his learning, and then he has to explain it to me. Give them manipulatives. That's those beans, beads, crayons, anything that they can physically move to manipulate the topic. Allow them to stand while doing their learning. Make sure they have plenty of breaks after each section. Some of those breaks can include acting out their learning or talking about their learning. You'll most likely see our kinesthetic learners being more animated with their hands. Allow them to talk through their learning, such as acting it out. Chunk their reading and their writing. Have them only focus on a paragraph at a time and then have them stop and talk to you about it. Declutter their space so that their hands are not searching for something to do. One of the things that you can do is have multiple spaces for learning so that when they are doing math, the only things in front of them are their math, anything they need for math. Then they move to a separate spot for reading, and all they have in front of them are things they need for reading. And make a schedule that they can manipulate so they are physically putting their schedule in maybe a pocket chart. And when they're done, they can flip it over and turn it backwards so that they know they have completed it. Some families get painting stir sticks from like Lowe's or Menards and put Velcro on it, and then you make squares, laminated squares of the schedule, and they pick exactly what they are going to work on and what order they're going to work on it. Then they physically move it from to do over to completed. I also recommend our kinesthetic learners have things like poppets or something fidgety for their hands to do. My brother, actually, who is a chef, so naturally he's a kinesthetic learner. He has to be doing things with his hands. He was noticing that when he didn't have something to do with his hands, he was getting on his phone and shopping on Amazon and spending a ton of money. So he actually bought himself poppets. Keep in mind, he's over 40. He bought himself some poppets. So instead of picking up his phone, he grabbed a poppet and just gave his hands something to do. So this truly is for all ages of learners. Our reading, writing, and solitary. Now, yes, this does align to K-12, but you're probably thinking, well, my student is a reading, writing, solitary learner. It does align with K-12, and we're still struggling. Yep, that happens. Give them time to do their work, but track their progress. You really need to track their progress. This is because our reading, writing, solitary learners can go down some rabbit holes. They also tend to be the perfectionists in the group. They want to be able to research things that interest them. Now, I am a reading, writing, and solitary learner in some cases, so I understand these rabbit holes. For example, in my class that I was taking last semester, we were supposed to read one board policy to analyze it. Just one. So one sheet. I read all of them. All thousands of them. It may even be more than 1,000. I not only read all of OPS board policies, I then went on to read Bellevue's and Millard's. So I went down a rabbit hole. I still got the work done on time, but that is just because I knew I was going down a rabbit hole, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go get my work done, and then I'm going to go keep reading about this. What I could have done is had Wendy just give me one board policy, not the whole binder, but just one. I like to think that she appreciated all the little nuggets of information I was giving her from the board policies. I don't know that she sees it as that, but I'm going to say she appreciated it. So some things that you can do to support your solitary learners, because they are going to want to research more, is allow them time to reflect. Give them time to give you those little nuggets of information like I was doing to Wendy. They may need some guiding questions. They may need to have that focus circle. If I had had a focus circle, I could have put off to the outside of the circle the fact that I wanted to read the 1,400 board policies, but I did not have time because that's not what I was focusing on. Minimize the books, minimize the opportunity to go down those rabbit holes. In my case, if I had just had Wendy give me one section or one board policy, I wouldn't have had the opportunity, or I would have had to work harder at going down that rabbit hole. Also, declutter the space so that our reading, writing, and solitary learners aren't able to grab things to read other than their work. Our verbal learners. Allow them time to talk through their learning. Some question stems for you is to say, tell me what you just read about. Or what else do you know? Or tell me what you already know about this topic. Get them, they think in words, whether it's words or phrases. So get them started in pulling out that information that they already know. A focus circle helps immensely with these learners. It helps them filter out all the other words that they're already thinking about. Find videos that help support their topic. Allow them to present their learning and declutter their space because, again, they're going to be looking for words. Wendy is a verbal processor. I want you to just, in your own head, in the last year and a half, I just got a new phone, and I transferred everything over from my other phone onto my new phone. And I was like, wow, I have an insane amount of texts. So I wanted to see where all these text messages were coming from. Like, I don't remember getting all these. So in a year and a half, I just want you to guess how many texts Wendy sent me. I am her like verbal processing partner. Anytime she's doing thinking, she needs to process it with words. So she will just send me those words. Just guess how many text messages she sent me in about 18 months. Are you ready for the number? 10,320. Yeah, you heard me right. 10,320. Isn't that hilarious? Now I looked back and I was like, holy cow, that's hilarious. That's a lot of text messages. And when I was first giving this presentation, the first time live, I got 9 texts during it. But then when I was looking back, I honestly did not reply to most of them. But it's because I am her partner when it comes to her processing, and that's something we have set up. She needs to verbally process, but I'm not always available to talk through it. So she's able to text it or email her thoughts to me simply because she needs to get them out and use the words. And that is the same with your learners. They may need to verbally process what they've learned. They can, obviously, Wendy can read through anything and learn it, but she's going to process it best when she's using her own words. And that's the same with your learners. Our social learners, these social learners, it does not always mean that they are extroverts and need to be talking with other people. It means that they need to be able to see or talk through their learning with their peers. My middle son, is an introvert. However, he is a social learner. He needs to be able to see what his peers are doing, and he's to be able to take in all of the information. To help support your learners with this, talk through their learning with them. Sit with them. Even if you are doing your own thing, have them have a sitting next to you doing their own thing. They need to feel as if they are a part of the group. If you have siblings in the house, you're all working on learning at the same time. Even if it's a toddler, they could be coloring or building with Legos, doing some Duplos, playing with something that feels like learning. Allow them time to collaborate and ask them questions through their learning so that they feel they are collaborating about the topic. Let them show you what they have gotten done. Let them kind of show off. Allow them time to present their learning or talk through their learning with you. Also find videos that support the topic. It's very effective if you can find videos by the same person so that they can feel like they have a thought partner, even if it's just a recorded video. They will still form a bond with that person. My daughter is a social learner as well, and during remote learning, she was watching videos by one teacher when it came to social studies, one teacher for science, one teacher for reading, and she felt like she had a bond with that teacher. It just so happened I was friends with some of these presenters, and when we would see them out in public, Amelia would be like starstruck that she got to see her thought partner. And she would ask, I mean, she's younger, she was a kindergartner, but she would ask her, do you remember when I said this? And bless their hearts, they were like, yes, that was such a good idea. So if you can find videos that support the topic by the same person, even for our juniors and seniors, this is going to be effective. Think about them watching YouTube videos. Do they go to the same person who is making YouTube videos? They're social learners. Allow clutter if that helps them. It may drive you insane, but if they're like unfazed by it, that may actually support their learning. Allow them to play music, and allow breaks that include talking or getting together with others, which includes yourself. Go play frisbee, go play catch, talk through their learning so that they feel like they are collaborating. And lastly, are logical learners. They see patterns in everything. So talk through those patterns with them. Help pull those patterns together and help them make connections between subjects and with their prior knowledge. Their brains are constantly looking for these patterns, and if they don't see a pattern, they're not going to read it because it's not going to connect to their bigger picture. So they're going to shut down and stop reading. So help them make those connections. Build a schedule that naturally connects items, such as reading and social studies. A lot of times our ELA has topics that can align with our social studies or history topics. Our science and math typically have topics that can align. So building a block schedule or building a schedule where they are naturally going from English to social studies, then math to science will help them naturally connect those subjects to that prior knowledge. Have them group or color code their notes, whether it's during taking the notes or after the day is over or after they've completed reading and social studies. They may want to go back and color code their notes so that they can see those connections. And they may just want to color code their notes as they're doing it, important or unimportant. Declutter their space. They are going to want order in their learning space. And have different learning spaces at home so that they have all of their math in one spot, then all of their science in one spot, their English in one spot, their social studies in one spot. They may want to have learning spaces that have, as we talked about, English and history in one space so that those are naturally connecting to them, and their math and their science in one space. Work with them to see how their brain is connecting the dots so that you're building a space and a schedule that works for them. Allow them to plan out their day every day with you. Don't just let them do it on their own, even if they're a senior. because you need to have that window into their brain so you can see how they are thinking and why they're working the way they're working. And make lists with them. Again, even if they're a senior, don't let them do it all by themselves. Make that list with them so that you have that insight into their brain. Let's take some time to reflect. Take out, this is going to be page 3 of that note catcher. Think about these things. I'm going to go a little faster because I am expecting you to pause the video to give yourself time to reflect. So what type of learners do you have at home? You're going to be circling these on the note catcher. But I want you to think about how you know this. Why do you think they are an auditory learner? Why do you feel that they are a reading, writing, solitary learner? I want you to take a look at the words in your focus circle. What is something you can implement right away to better support your learner? Now I want you to take a look at the words outside your circle. What type of learning or instruction is the least effective for your learner? For my middle son, it's auditory. He does not thrive if something is just spoken. So what is something that is least effective for your learner? And what are some distractions that are in place that work against your learner's preferences that you need to remove? So thinking about those words that are outside the circle, do you have any structures in place that fit with those words that are outside? That's working against your learner, so we need to get some structures in place that support them. Now I want you to think about what type of learner you are. What are your natural preferences? Now, how do your natural preferences impact how you approach instruction with your learner? If these do not align, then what's something you're going to need to purposefully do to support your learner? You and your learner may have opposite preferences, but your job is to support your learner where they are. So think about what you are going to purposefully need to do to help support them. If you have any questions, if you want to talk through any of your learning, because you may be a verbal processor as well, I am a great thought partner. You can email me at sarah.nominson@ops.org, and you are welcome to call me at any time, 531-299-9453. Again, as I've shown you, I am a great thought partner with our verbal processors. If you want to read or write it to me, I am happy to do that as well. Again, sarah.nominson@ops.org, or call me 531-299-9453. Thanks so much for watching.